You know that feeling when your entire world collapses in a single moment? When everything you've built, everything you've worked for, everything you believed about the people closest to you just shatters? I'm sitting in a federal investigator's office, the kind of room you only see in movies. Cold, sterile. The fluorescent lights are making my head pound. And this man in a cheap suit is reading off charges that have my name on them. Wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, money laundering. Each word feels like a punch to the gut. And my sister, my own flesh and blood, is sitting right next to me. She's squeezing my hand, playing the supportive sister role. "We'll get through this," she whispers. But she won't look at me, won't meet my eyes. That's when I realized that the person I trusted most in this world, the person I built everything with, had already won. She'd set the trap, I'd walked right into it, and now I was staring down the barrel of 20 years in federal prison. For crimes I didn't commit. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 34 years old, or at least I was 34 when this nightmare began. I was a small business owner, co-founder of Mitchell & Associates, a consulting firm that specialized in corporate restructuring. We'd built it from nothing, just me and my sister Claire. 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears. 5 years of sleeping on office floors and living on ramen noodles and telling ourselves it would all be worth it. And it was worth it. For a while, I was the chief operating officer. I handled the day-to-day operations, client relationships, project management, everything that actually kept the business running. Claire was our CFO and public face. She handled the money, the press, the investors. She was always better with numbers than me, always better at schmoozing the right people at the right parties. If convicted of these charges, I would lose everything. My freedom, my reputation, my career, my family. Everything I'd spent my entire adult life building would be reduced to a mugshot and a prison number. But here's what my sister didn't know. Here's what she couldn't have possibly known when she thought she'd destroyed me. I'm not the same person she thought she could break. Let me take you back. Because you need to understand who we were before, you can understand how deep this betrayal cuts. Claire is my older sister, 3 years older to be exact. Growing up, we were inseparable. Mom used to joke that we were two halves of the same person. When I was bullied in middle school, Claire stood up for me. When she went through her messy divorce at 26, I was the one who held her while she cried for 3 months straight. We weren't just sisters. We were best friends. When Dad died and left us that small inheritance, $50,000 each, we both knew what we wanted to do with it. We'd been talking about starting a business together since college. Claire had her MBA. I had my operations management degree. We had the skills. We had the drive. We had each other. "Let's do it," she said over wine one night. "Let's build something that's ours." So we did. Those first 2 years were brutal. We worked 18-hour days. We took on any client who'd have us. We maxed out credit cards. We put every penny back into the business. But we were doing it together, and that made it bearable. I remember the night we landed our first major client, a Fortune 500 company that needed help restructuring their logistics division. $2 million contract. Claire and I stayed up all night celebrating, drinking cheap champagne and laughing until our sides hurt. "We did it," I told her. "We actually fucking did it." She hugged me tight. "We're going to change the world, Sarah. You and me." I believed her. God, I was so stupid. The business exploded after that. Within 3 years, we'd gone from 2 employees, just us, to 47. We had offices in 3 cities. Our revenue hit $20 million annually. We were profiled in business magazines. Claire got invited to speak at conferences. I was proud of what we'd built, proud of what we'd accomplished together. But looking back now, I can see when things started to shift. Claire became obsessed with growth. More clients, more revenue, more. She started talking about taking the company public, about becoming a household name. "We need to restructure," she told me one day in her office. "Make things more efficient. "What kind of restructuring?" I asked. She pulled out a stack of documents, contracts, corporate filings, legal paperwork that made my eyes glaze over. "Just some administrative stuff," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "We need to clarify roles. Make sure everything's properly documented for when we bring in investors." I should have read every single page. I should have hired my own lawyer to review everything, but I trusted her. She was my sister. She'd never steer me wrong. So I signed where she told me to sign. What I didn't realize was that she was making me the primary officer on every single piece of corporate documentation. My name, my signature, my legal authority. I was listed as the compliance contact, the final signature authority, the person responsible for every financial decision the company made. On paper, I was in control of everything. In reality, I was being set up to take the fall. The red flags were there. I just didn't see them. Claire insisted on handling all the financial reporting herself. "You're too busy with operations," she'd say. "Let me handle the boring money stuff." She started routing important emails through her personal accounts instead of our company server. "More secure," she claimed. She had me sign off on transactions I barely had time to review. "Just trust me," she'd say. "I've got this." And I did trust her, because she was my sister, because we'd built this together, because blood is supposed to mean something. What a joke. It was a Tuesday morning when my world ended. I was in our main office, going over a client proposal, when I got a call from our bank. Our corporate accounts had been frozen. Federal investigation, they said. They couldn't tell me anything else. I immediately called Claire. She sounded confused, worried. "What? That doesn't make sense. Let me make some calls." 2 hours later, FBI agents walked into our office. They had a warrant for corporate documents. They seized computers, hard drives, files. They questioned employees. The whole office watched in stunned silence as federal agents tore through 5 years of our work. And then they asked me to come downtown to answer some questions. "Am I under arrest?" I asked. "Not yet," one of them said, "but you might want to bring a lawyer." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial my attorney's number. Claire insisted on coming with me. "We're in this together," she said, squeezing my arm. "Whatever this is, we'll handle it together." I actually felt grateful for her support in that moment. Can you imagine? I was grateful to the person who was actively destroying my life. The investigator's name was Agent Morrison. He was maybe 50, with gray hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen every lie ever told. He laid out the charges methodically, clinically. Mitchell and Associates had been engaged in systematic fraud for at least 2 years. Shell companies, false invoicing, money laundering through offshore accounts, tax evasion totaling over $3 million. And every single piece of evidence had my name on it, my signatures, my approval, my authority. "Miss Mitchell," Agent Morrison said, staring at me across the table, "we have documentation showing you personally approved transactions that funneled company money into unauthorized accounts. We have emails from your address authorizing fraudulent invoices. We have your electronic signature on tax documents that drastically underreported company income." I couldn't breathe. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I would never." "The evidence is quite clear," he interrupted. "You were the chief operating officer, the final signature authority. Nothing happened in this company without your approval." Claire was crying next to me, actual tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, what did you do?" she asked, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to us?" I turned to look at her, and that's when I saw it. Just for a second. A flash of something in her eyes that wasn't shock or grief. It was satisfaction, and she still wouldn't look directly at me. The news broke the next day. Local business owner under federal investigation for fraud. My face was plastered across every news site. My LinkedIn profile exploded with messages, most of them hateful. Our clients started canceling contracts. Our employees started quitting. Everything we'd built was crumbling in real time. and I was standing at the center of the collapse, watching it all burn. My lawyer, David Chen, one of the best defense attorneys in the state, sat me down and gave it to me straight. Sarah, they have a strong case, very strong. If this goes to trial and you're convicted, you're looking at 20 to 25 years in federal prison, plus fines, plus restitution. You'll lose everything. But I didn't do anything, I screamed. I didn't commit fraud. I didn't steal money. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do, he said quietly. It matters what they can prove. And right now, they can prove that your name is on everything. Your signature, your authority, your responsibility. He recommended I consider a plea deal. A plea deal for crimes I didn't commit. I went home that night to the apartment I could barely afford anymore, and I cried until I had nothing left, until I was just an empty shell of rage and grief and disbelief. The worst part? Watching my family take sides. Claire played her role perfectly. The devastated sister, the innocent victim who'd been betrayed by her own blood. She gave interviews, tearful interviews where she talked about how she'd trusted me, how she'd never suspected I could do something like this, how she was heartbroken but cooperating fully with investigators. She posted on social media about betrayal and trust, and how sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you most. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't destroying my life. My mother called me, actually called me. Sarah, how could you? After everything we taught you, after everything your father would have wanted. Mom, I didn't do this, I begged. Claire is lying. She's the one who... Don't you dare blame your sister, she snapped. Don't you dare try to drag her down with you. She's been nothing but supportive. She's standing by you even after what you've done. My own mother didn't believe me. Friends stopped answering my calls. Former colleagues blocked me on social media. I became toxic, radioactive. No one wanted to be associated with the woman who'd committed fraud and betrayed her own sister. I lost everything in a matter of weeks. My reputation, my income, my relationships, my dignity. I had to sell my car to pay legal fees. I moved out of my apartment and into a friend's basement, one of the few people who still believed I might be innocent. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Agent Morrison reading those charges. I saw Claire's fake tears. I saw my future evaporating into a prison cell. I had panic attacks, real ones, where I couldn't breathe and my vision went black and I thought I was dying. Rock bottom came on a Thursday night, 3 months after the investigation started. I was in that basement, surrounded by boxes of my possessions, everything I'd managed to salvage from my old life. I was going through my bank statements, trying to figure out how I was going to afford next month's legal fees. I couldn't. I was broke, completely broke. The business was gone. My savings were drained. I had maybe $3,000 left to my name, and I was staring down federal charges that could put me away for 2 decades. I picked up a bottle of sleeping pills. I didn't take them, but I held them, and I thought about how easy it would be to just stop, to stop fighting, to stop hurting, to stop existing in this nightmare. I sat there for 3 hours, holding those pills, crying so hard I thought I'd break. And then I got angry. Not sad, not hopeless, angry. Because you know what? I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't steal money. I didn't commit fraud. I didn't betray anyone. My sister did that. My sister destroyed me. And she was walking around free, playing the victim, living her life while I contemplated ending mine. Fuck that. Fuck her. I put the pills down. And I decided right then and there that I wasn't going to prison for crimes I didn't commit. I wasn't going to let Claire win. I wasn't going to let her destroy me and get away with it. I was going to fight. And I was going to prove she did this. It started small. A tiny inconsistency that David, my lawyer, mentioned almost in passing. We were going through the evidence the prosecution had turned over thousands of pages of financial documents, emails, transaction records. David was highlighting things, making notes, building what little defense we had. "This is odd," he muttered, staring at his laptop. "What?" "This transaction. The one they're claiming you personally approved. The timestamp shows it was processed at 2:47 p.m. on March 15th. So? So according to your calendar, you were on a flight to Seattle at 2:47 p.m. on March 15th. Client meeting. You didn't land until after 5 p.m. I sat up straighter. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone approved that transaction using your credentials while you were physically unable to do so. It was small. One transaction out of hundreds. But it was something. Pull every transaction they're claiming I approved." I told him, my mind racing. Cross-reference them with my calendar, my travel records, my phone location data, everything. David looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Sarah, that's going to take weeks, and it might not prove anything. Do it anyway." I became obsessed. Every waking moment was spent combing through evidence, looking for inconsistencies, searching for proof. I couldn't afford to pay David for all the hours this required, so I did most of it myself. I taught myself basic forensic accounting. I learned how to read server logs and metadata and IP addresses. I barely slept, barely ate. My friend, whose basement I was living in, started getting worried. "Sarah, you're killing yourself," she said one night, finding me still awake at 3 a.m. surrounded by printed documents. "I'm saving myself," I corrected. And then I found it. An old laptop. My old laptop from 2 years ago, before we'd upgraded our hardware. I'd kept it in storage, thinking I might sell it eventually for spare cash. I powered it on, waited while it slowly booted up, prayed that I'd never wipe the hard drive. I hadn't, and everything was still there. Old emails, old documents, old contracts, including a cloud backup that had been running automatically in the background, syncing certain files to a personal cloud account I'd forgotten I even had. I went through every file methodically, comparing versions, looking at creation dates and modification dates and metadata, and that's when I saw it. A contract I'd signed in February. I remembered signing it. I remembered reading through it carefully, because it was for a major client, and I wanted to make sure everything was correct. But the version in the prosecution's evidence was different. Not hugely different, just a few clauses, a few signature lines, a few changes that shifted financial authority and created loopholes that could be exploited. The version I'd signed wasn't the version that had been filed. Someone had altered the document after I'd signed it. I checked the metadata. The file had been modified 3 days after I'd signed it. Modified on Claire's computer. At Claire's IP address, my hands started shaking. I pulled up more files, more contracts, more agreements. Same pattern. I'd sign. Claire would modify. The modified versions would be filed, and every single modification made me look more guilty and gave her more control. I spent the next 2 weeks building a timeline, cross-referencing every transaction, every approval, every document. And the pattern was unmistakable. At least 30% of the fraudulent transactions occurred while I was verifiably out of the office, on flights, at conferences, on vacation. But they'd all been approved using my credentials, my password, my electronic signature. Someone had been using my access without my knowledge. Someone had been committing fraud in my name. And there was only one person who had the access, the authority, and the motive to do that. Claire. I showed everything to David, laid it all out on his conference room table like I was building a case, which I guess I was. "This is good," he said slowly, studying the documents. "This is really good, Sarah, but it's not enough." "What do you mean it's not enough?" "I mean, it creates reasonable doubt. It suggests someone else had access to your credentials, but it doesn't prove that someone was Claire, and it doesn't explain how she got your passwords or why you wouldn't have noticed unauthorized access. So what do we need? We need an expert, someone who can analyze this from a technical perspective, someone who can testify that these transactions were definitively not initiated by you." I can't afford an expert. I can barely afford you." David was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up his phone. "Let me make a call," he said. Her name was Jennifer Park, and she was a forensic IT consultant who specialized in corporate fraud cases. Apparently, she and David had worked together before. She was maybe 45, with sharp eyes and an air of someone who'd seen every dirty trick in the book. David explained the situation, showed her the evidence I'd compiled. She studied it for maybe 20 minutes, saying nothing, just clicking through files and reading documents. Finally, she looked up. "This isn't just fraud," she said quietly. "This is identity theft, internal framing. Someone deliberately constructed a paper trail to make you responsible for crimes they committed." "Can you prove it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe. I'll need access to your company's servers, full transaction logs, email servers, everything. The FBI seized all of that. Then I'll need to request it through discovery. It's going to take time." "How much time?" 2 months. Maybe 3. My trial was scheduled to start in 4 months. "Do it," I said. "Whatever it takes." Jennifer nodded. "I'll need a retainer." "How much?" $15,000. I didn't have $15,000. I didn't have $1,500. David saw my face and sighed. "I'll cover it," he said. "You can pay me back when this is over." "David, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering. Because I believe you, Sarah. And because if I'm right about what happened here, your sister is about to get exactly what she deserves." Jennifer worked fast. She subpoenaed server logs, email records, transaction histories. She analyzed IP addresses, login timestamps, user behavior patterns. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth emerged. Claire had been systematically siphoning money from our company for almost 3 years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. She'd created shell companies, false invoices, fraudulent transactions, but she'd done it all using my credentials. She'd installed keylogging software on my work computer hidden in a routine security update she'd personally installed. That's how she got my passwords. She'd used those passwords to access systems, approve transactions, send emails, all while making it look like I was the one doing it. She'd been meticulous, patient, brilliant, in a twisted kind of way. And she'd set it all up so that when the fraud was inevitably discovered, I would take the fall. But Jennifer found something else. Something bigger. Claire had been using the stolen money to fund another company, a competing company that she'd registered under a fake name. She was planning to dissolve Mitchell and Associates, let me go to prison, and then swoop in with her new company to steal all our clients. I wasn't just her scapegoat. I was her business strategy. "Why me?" I asked Jennifer one day while we were going over the evidence. "Why would she do this to me? I'm her sister." Jennifer looked at me with something like pity. "You said it yourself. You had a clean record, legal authority, emotional trust. That made you the perfect fall guy." "But she's my sister," I repeated, my voice breaking. "We built this together. I loved her." "Some people," Jennifer said quietly, "see love as a weakness to exploit, not a bond to honor." David advised me not to confront Claire. Not yet. "Let her think she's safe," he said. "Let her think she's won. The more confident she gets, the more mistakes she'll make." So I played along. I cooperated with plea discussions. I acted defeated, resigned. I even called Claire and told her I was thinking about taking a plea deal. "Whatever you think is best," she said, her voice full of fake sympathy. "I just want this to be over for you, Sarah. I hate seeing you suffer like this." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her I knew everything, to watch her face when she realized she'd been caught. But I didn't. I waited. And Claire, confident that she'd gotten away with it, started making mistakes. She gave another interview, this one to a major business publication. She talked about rebuilding trust and moving forward after betrayal. She positioned herself as the victim who was bravely continuing our company's mission alone. She signed affidavits swearing to the accuracy of her statements to investigators. She testified before a grand jury, under oath, repeating the lies she'd been telling all along. Every lie was documented. Every false statement was recorded. And Jennifer was quietly compiling evidence that proved every single word was bullshit. There was one small victory along the way that kept me going. I'd been trying to buy a car, a cheap used car, because I needed basic transportation. But when the dealer ran my credit, I was denied. Claire had apparently reported fraudulent activity on several of my accounts, tanking my credit score. But with Jennifer's help and some of the evidence we'd gathered, I was able to prove the fraud claims were false. I filed a dispute, got my credit corrected, even managed to secure a small personal loan to help with expenses. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was proof that I could fight back, that I could start rebuilding. It gave me hope. 4 months after I found that old laptop, David got a call from the prosecutor's office. Jennifer had presented them with her forensic report. All the evidence, all the metadata, all the proof that I couldn't have committed the crimes I was charged with because I wasn't the one who'd actually committed them. The prosecutor wanted a meeting. I sat in that same federal building where Agent Morrison had read me those charges. But this time, things were different. This time, I had evidence. The prosecutor, a stern woman named Margaret Chen, reviewed Jennifer's report in silence. 30 minutes of painful, agonizing silence while I sat there trying not to shake. Finally, she looked up. "Miss Mitchell, I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "We made assumptions based on the evidence we had. We should have dug deeper." "What happens now?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Now we investigate your sister." They moved fast once they understood what had really happened. Search warrants, subpoenas, asset freezes. Claire didn't see it coming. She'd been too confident, too comfortable. When federal agents showed up at her house, she actually called me, panicking. "Sarah, they're here. They're saying I'm under investigation. This is insane. You have to help me." I let her ramble for a few seconds. Let her beg. Let her play the victim one more time. Then I said very calmly, "I know what you did, Claire." Silence. "I know about the keylogger, the shell companies, the stolen money, the competing business. I know everything. Sarah, I don't know what you're... And so do the FBI. So do the prosecutors. So does everyone who matters." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Fast. Panicked. "You thought you'd destroy me," I continued. "You thought I'd go to prison and you'd walk away with everything. But you were wrong. Sarah, please, go to hell, Claire." I hung up. It was the most satisfying conversation of my life. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Claire showed up with her own lawyer, some expensive suit who probably charged her $500 an hour. She looked terrible, pale, thin, like she hadn't slept in days. Good. Margaret Chen presented the evidence methodically. Jennifer's forensic report, server logs showing access from Claire's computers, metadata proving document alterations, financial records tracing the stolen money to Claire's hidden company. Claire's lawyer tried to argue, tried to claim the evidence was circumstantial, tried to suggest that maybe someone else had framed both of us. But then they played the recordings. The interviews Claire had given, the affidavits she'd signed, the sworn testimony where she'd explicitly stated that I was solely responsible for financial decisions. And then Margaret presented evidence proving Claire had personally approved and executed the fraudulent transactions she'd claimed to know nothing about. Claire had lied under oath multiple times. I watched her face as she realized what was happening, watched the color drain, watched her hands start to shake. She looked at me across the courtroom, finally made eye contact for the first time since this whole nightmare began. I smiled, a small, cold smile that said, "You lose." The judge made her ruling quickly. All charges against me were dismissed. Immediately. With prejudice, meaning they could never be brought again. My record would be expunged. My reputation cleared, at least legally. Claire was arrested that day, right there in the courtroom. wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, identity theft, perjury. Everything she'd tried to pin on me, plus additional charges for lying to federal investigators and obstructing justice. They let her out in handcuffs. She was crying, begging. "Sarah, please, tell them. Tell them I didn't mean it. We're sisters." I didn't say a word. I just watched as they took her away. The business was seized. All of Claire's assets were frozen. The hidden company she'd been building was shut down. She was charged federally. No chance of state-level leniency. She was looking at 25 to 30 years if convicted at trial. Her lawyer advised her to take a plea deal. She took it. 15 years in federal prison. Full restitution of the stolen funds. Permanent ban from holding any corporate officer position. 15 years. She'd be 53 when she got out. If she got out. Federal sentences don't offer much in the way of early release. My family came around eventually. Once the truth became public, once the evidence was reported in the news, they had no choice but to accept what Claire had done. My mother called, apologizing, crying. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I should have believed you. I should have trusted you." "Yes," I said, "you should have. Can you forgive me?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I don't know, Mom. You chose her over me. You believed I was a criminal without even questioning it. That's not something I can just forget." "But she's going to prison," my mother said. Like that somehow made it better. "She's going to suffer for what she did." "So did I said quietly. "For months I suffered. And you let me. So forgive me if I need some time before I'm ready to pretend everything's okay." She tried to argue. Tried to guilt me about family and forgiveness and moving on. I hung up on her. Some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. Some relationships, once broken, stay broken, and I'm okay with that. Claire disappeared from public life after her sentencing. Her friends abandoned her. Her business contacts cut ties. The industry blacklisted her. She lost everything, just like she'd planned for me to lose everything. Poetic justice, some people said. I called it karma. I had to rebuild my life from scratch. And it wasn't easy. My reputation was legally cleared, but socially, people have long memories. Some former clients came back, apologetic and ready to work with me again. Others never returned my calls. I couldn't revive Mitchell and Associates. That name was tainted, associated with scandal and fraud. Even though I'd been exonerated, the stink of the investigation lingered. So, I started over. New company, new name, Mitchell Consulting Group, just me. No partners, no sisters. No one I had to trust with my livelihood. It took 2 years, but I rebuilt. Smaller than before, more cautious, but successful. I'm never going to be the same person I was before all this happened. I'm harder now, more suspicious, less trusting, but I'm also free. Free from Claire, free from false charges, free from the fear that haunted me for those terrible months. I even changed my last name legally. I'm Sarah Chen now. I took David's last name as a thank you for everything he did, and he was honored. A fresh start, a new identity. The woman who was almost destroyed by her sister doesn't exist anymore. I made sure of that. You want to know what I learned from all this? What wisdom I can offer after having my life torn apart and rebuilt. Trust is earned, not given, even from family, especially from family. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. DNA doesn't guarantee someone has your best interests at heart. The people closest to you have the power to hurt you the most. They know your weaknesses, your passwords, your patterns. They know exactly where to stick the knife for maximum damage. And if they're willing to use that knowledge against you, they'll do it in ways you'll never see coming. Verify everything. Read every document. Keep your own records. Maintain your own evidence. Because the moment you let your guard down, the moment you assume someone else has your back, that's when you're most vulnerable. I trusted my sister with everything: my business, my reputation, my future. She tried to trade all of it for my freedom. The only reason I'm not in prison right now is because I got angry enough to fight back. Because I refused to accept the fate she designed for me. Sometimes I think about Claire. Wonder what she's doing in prison. Wonder if she has any remorse. Wonder if she ever thinks about what she destroyed. Probably not. People like her don't feel remorse. They feel sorry for themselves. They rationalize and justify and blame everyone except themselves. She probably tells herself she's the victim, that I somehow wronged her, that she was justified in what she did. That's fine. She can tell herself whatever lies help her sleep at night in her prison cell. Because I sleep just fine knowing she's exactly where she belongs. If you're going through something similar, if someone you trusted is trying to destroy you, frame you, ruin you, here's what I want you to know. Document everything, every email, every conversation, every transaction. Keep copies in multiple places. Cloud storage, physical files, everything. Don't assume the evidence will speak for itself. You need to be your own detective, your own forensic analyst, your own advocate. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let loyalty or love blind you to red flags. And most importantly, never give up. There were so many moments when I wanted to quit, when I wanted to take the plea deal, serve my time, and just get it over with. When the fight seemed too hard and the odds seemed too long. But I kept going, and that made all the difference. My sister thought she'd destroyed me. She thought I'd be too broken, too defeated, too scared to fight back. She thought she knew me. She was wrong. I'm not the same person she betrayed. That person died in a federal investigator's office, holding her sister's hand while charges were being read. The person who emerged from that nightmare is someone new, someone stronger, someone who knows exactly how cruel the world can be and refuses to be a victim ever again. Claire tried to bury me. She didn't realize she was planting seeds. And now I'm growing in ways she never imagined. That's my revenge. Not her prison sentence. Not her ruined reputation. Not her lost business. My revenge is thriving. My revenge is success. My revenge is living a life she can only dream about from behind bars. So if you're out there, Claire, listening to this somehow, and I know you won't be, but let me indulge the fantasy. I want you to know something. I forgive you. Not because you deserve forgiveness, not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger was killing me, and you've taken enough from me already. I forgive you so I can move on, so I can live my life without your ghost haunting every decision. But I will never forget what you did, and I will never let you back into my life. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them, just like I've learned to live with mine. This is Sarah Chen, formerly Sarah Mitchell, sister, business owner, survivor. The woman who almost went to prison for crimes she didn't commit. The woman who fought back and won. If my story taught you anything, I hope it's this. Never underestimate the strength of someone who has nothing left to lose. Because that person will move mountains to reclaim their life. And no one, not family, not federal agents, not fate itself, can stop them. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope you never have to live through yours. But if you do, I hope you fight like hell, because you deserve better than what someone else decided you deserve. You deserve the truth, and sometimes you have to be the one to prove it.